Welcome to Sit, Stay, Read, the podcast for every wag, whinny, and whisker. I'm Kathleen Donnelly, award-winning author and retired canine handler. Each week, I chat with novelists about the bond we share with our furry friends and how they inspire stories. Grab a coffee, get cozy with your favorite pet. It's time to sit, stay, read. Today, I am welcoming award-winning author Cary J. Griffith to the show. Cary writes the Sam Rivers mystery series, and I love, Cary, that your books explore nature and the outdoors. So welcome today. Welcome to Sit, Stay, Read.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's really an honor and a privilege to be on your show. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming on to talk about your latest release, Rattlesnake Bluff. And I would love to start out with you talking a little bit about your main character. He's really unique and he has a unique job, or at least I think it's unique. So I'd love for you to fill us in.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Well, the character is Sam Rivers. He's a special agent for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I don't know that many special agents for the U.S. I know one or two that I've spoken to briefly. But what I was most intrigued about having somebody like that is the sort of the crimes they're beat, and their beat is really the sort of the endangered species list. That's part of what they do. And so I was really interested in writing about outdoors themes, especially involving species, different species. And that's how I kind of came up with Sam Rivers as, a guy that has, as part of his job, managing the endangered species list. And that's how he ends up getting involved in crimes. And it affords me the opportunity to explore the species. In wolf kill, it was wolves, and killing monarchs, it was monarch butterflies, cougar claw, mountain lions. And this latest one, this is number 5. This was really about a rattlesnake down in southeastern Minnesota. And of course, all my books are set in Minnesota. So I kind of have to, in one way, shape, or form, shoehorn the species that I'm writing about in Minnesota. I have to say I'm I'm going through sort of the apex predators in Minnesota. We don't have a whole lot. So I'm my latest one that I just finished a draft of is called Grizzly Narrows. Well, we don't have
Ooh.
grizzlies, yeah, in Minnesota, but it harkens back. It's set in Minnesota, but Sam Rivers had an experience in a fictitious place in Canada called Grizzly Narrows, and that sort of comes up and plays a part in the book. So, by one way, shape, or form, I write about the outdoors, and that's why I really like Sam Rivers, because he gets involved when there's an endangered or threatened species that's involved.
I love that. And I especially love his sidekick, Gray. He's an unusual animal sidekick. I don't know of too many books that have a wolf hybrid with their character. In fact, I don't know of
Yeah,
any other books. Do you? Or,
no, I don't. And I have to say that was a little uh, sort of controversial. If you talk to anybody, you
Mhm.
probably know this, but
Oh,
wolf
yeah.
dog hybrids are not, they're kind of frowned upon. You're not sure what you're going to get. And I've taken liberties with Gray, the wolf dog hybrid that's Sam Rivers' sidekick. Um, in Minnesota, it's actually legal to breed and sell wolf dog hybrids, but in a lot of
Wow.
states it's not, because
Yeah.
a lot of times they can kill other dogs.
Mhm.
They get very territorial. More wolf comes out than dog, and they can be problematic as pets. And I've taken a lot of liberties with Gray because, of course, he has more Malamute. He's a Malamute Arctic wolf hybrid, and he
Okay.
has more Malamute in him than Arctic wolf, but he has the keen senses that
He does.
he comes to rely on in helping Sam solve and track a lot of the crimes and the criminals that I talk about in the book. So yeah, I kind of like it. And he came up because the first book, Wolf Kill, in that book, there was a despicable guy that was a wolf dog hybrid breeder, and he was terrible. It was by the name of Angus Moon. And he really mistreated his animals. And so Gray is a 6-month old rescue pup at the end of Wolf
Okay.
Kill. And that's kind of how I got onto Gray. That for the next novel, he's his full-fledged sidekick, and he's trying to get him to be a full partner. But the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, of course, frown on Gray because he is a wolf dog hybrid. But still, yeah, he helps out quite a bit, as do your canines.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's fun and I find it fascinating because, we have such a controversy going on currently here in Colorado with reintroducing wolves. And so your first book was really fascinating and bringing Gray in that way. And I love it because I don't know a ton about them, but I love how independent you keep Gray. And yet he helps Sam when he needs to.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Um, and he gets wounded sometimes, he gets hurt. But not terribly bad. Boy, you're absolutely right. Now, as I understand it, the wolf reintroduction in Western Colorado did not go through. Is that right?
Actually, it did. It just has not gone well, I guess is a good way to put it. Or at least that's my interpretation. There's already been a lot of conflicts with wolves killing livestock
Sheep, but
and
livestock, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, it is a controversy. I understand both sides and they are an environmental I believe they can help the environment, but I also understand where ranchers are coming from. So I bet you did
Yeah,
some research on that for your books.
I did. I mean, my new nonfiction book is kind of looking at the whole wolf repopulation, reintroduction controversy. And
Cool.
it's tough. There is a lot of, and so in some of my initial research, I've seen I need to do some more, get more informed about the Colorado effort. But of course, in Western Wyoming and
Mhm.
Montana and Idaho, they've reintroduced him, and it's been controversial. And it's
Yeah.
controversial here in Minnesota. We have the biggest population, but yeah,
Wow.
it's, yeah, yeah,
I
we
didn't
have
realize that.
literally. Oh, we have half the population of gray wolves in the entire lower 48 in
Oh
Minnesota.
my gosh.
Yeah,
Wow.
and you can imagine hunters and farmers and ranchers. That it's controversial. And that
Yeah.
here they're still under the endangered species list. They're still threatened under the endangered species list. So even though we have an estimated population of 2,700, it's yeah, it's of concern to a lot of people.
Wow, that's something. Well, and moving back to Rattlesnake Bluff, because there's another environmental issue and a really fascinating one with more than just rattlesnakes, but I loved how, and I'm trying not to give too many spoilers, but I think we can get away with saying this. There's land being developed, and all of a sudden there's an endangered species, and that plays into this. I would love to know more about your research into that and experience with that.
Yeah, that was there's one of the things with the Endangered Species Act is that it can actually be used to suspend or stop development. And I wanted to explore that in Rattlesnake Bluff because it's like a high-end townhouse complex that's going on. It's being built in Minnesota's Bluff country. That's a real beautiful part of our state down in southeastern
Wow.
Minnesota. And yeah, the eastern Massasauga rattlesnake, which hasn't been seen in the state, it used to be in Minnesota. We have
Oh,
timber
wow.
rattlesnakes, and yeah,
Okay.
you guys have a lot of rattlesnakes, but
We
we have
do.
Yes, we have timber rattlesnakes down there. They're actually pretty rare. But we used to have 2 decades ago this eastern Massasauga rattlesnake, and one makes an appearance in this development site. So of course Sam Rivers has to immediately shut down the site, at least long enough to do a survey. And that is controversial. It gets into that whole controversy about where do you stop development for the sake of a species? There was the
Yeah.
the snail darter controversy out west. I think I referenced that in the book where they stopped the building of a dam. There were the owls that they stopped forestry work in the Northwest because of the owls that were out there. And a lot of people that's very controversial. So I wanted to explore that in Rattlesnake Bluff.
I loved it. And I think one of the things that I was thinking about reading it is, you have the owls or the other animals you've mentioned, and you think, oh, they're so cute. And then think a rattlesnake, and you're like, oh man, you are not cute. And yet, through the book, I actually became a fan of these rattlesnakes. And by the end, you're like rooting for the rattlesnake. I love that you developed that.
I
Is that intentional
love,
or?
well, ever since I was a kid, I always really loved snakes. In fact, when I was a kid, bless my mom, she let me have several different like garter. They were non-venomous snakes. The garter snakes, blue racers, hognose snakes, fox snakes. Then in cages in my basement, right, I used to go out and catch them. And I've always had a fascination with them. I've always thought they were really beautiful. I've never had that gene or whatever it is where I mean, I've always been wary. I don't want to get bit or anything,
Right, right.
but I've never had that fear of snakes that some people do have. My wife hates snakes. I want to get some garter snakes and put them in our yard. We live on a 48-acre
Oh,
wood,
wow.
and there's right it abuts. We don't own it. It abuts the back of our house, and I want to get some snakes out there, but she says, no, no way. We're not going to get any, we're not going to put any snakes in our yard. Um, so I've always been really fascinated with them, and I have always thought they were really beautiful. And of course, they have always been decimated like many of the species that Sam Rivers gets involved with. They've been decimated over the years, and farmers, if they see a snake, they'll kill it. Even though snakes, I try to bring this out a little bit in the book, do a lot of really good things. They do a service
Yeah.
for the environment. Um, but but people don't like them, and especially the developers in this case don't like it because they're stopping a very high-end and expensive development for a snake. So yeah, that's all part of the story.
I love that. And I loved how you tied in what I really enjoy about all of your books is you tie in such great mysteries to these environmental issues. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the premise of the cold case in your book, or if, again, I don't want to give away spoilers. So,
No, I really appreciate you asking about this. This has not come up in any of the appearances or the other conversations I've had about this, but in our state, this was probably 25 years ago. I don't know if you've ever heard of Jacob Wetterling. He was a
I
boy.
have
He was a
actually, yes.
Yeah, I think he was 9 or 12, and he just disappeared up in.
Mhm.
And I remember I was going to school at the University of Minnesota at the time, and I remember being really shocked and concerned about that. That, and there was another instance where a girl went missing for a short period of time who had gone out on a rural road way up north, and um, she'd gone roller skating. And so I was thinking about those two instances when I came up with the initial um, prologue that I write about in the book where uh, something like that happens to a couple
Yeah.
of young kids in the book. And years later, it's 25 years later, um, it plays a role in the mystery that happens, and it begins to things start to unravel with regard to the snake and Sam Rivers figuring out something else is going on. And so I did think about both of those instances when I came up with what happens at the beginning of Rattlesnake Bluff.
Well, it's a great mystery, and it creates a page turner because you kind of can see everything coming together. And again, I love that it was a snake that ultimately brings out the truth, and that was fun. And as far as the book, I mean, the mystery is tragic. It's a tragic incident, but
Oh yeah, terrible.
really, really well done. So. Um, we talked already a little bit about what's up next for Sam and Gray. Grizzlies, though. I'm wondering about Gray versus a grizzly. Is that going to
Oh
happen?
no, 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 no. Well, Grizzly, I mean Gray, Sam is reflecting on a case that he got involved with early on in his career, and he
Okay.
was recruited by Kay Magdalen, his boss, to go up into Canada to uh, the, flank a researcher who's collared a bunch of grizzlies, and
Okay.
they find one who's been poached, and there's a big scene, and he remembers all this. Now, years later, people have heard about that, and so it plays a role with a grizzly, the remains of a grizzly bear that have actually been legally
Okay.
hunted in Alaska or Canada and brought down to lure Sam Rivers out because of this experience that he had. And of course, it's a grizzly bear, and grizzlies are on the threatened list. And so
Yes.
when he finds out that a grizzly bear has been involved, he has to investigate, which is what this particular person or people wanted to do. It's kind of a bait for a trap to catch Sam Rivers. That's how I had to kind of shoehorn in grizzly bears in this instance because
Okay.
we don't have them in Minnesota, and you don't have them in Colorado.
No, we
There
do
aren't a lot.
not. No, we
Yeah,
have the black bears, but no grizzlies, which is fine. Although I mean
yeah,
they're impressive bears again. I've seen some of them traveling, not here in Colorado, but in a sanctuary and whatnot. So they're
yeah.
really amazing
They are
animals.
they are amazing. They're also really dangerous. I mean, you got to be
Yes,
careful. Yeah.
yes, yeah, very dangerous. I've thought before we leave today, I would ask you a little bit about your nonfiction books. They're on my to be read list because they look really fascinating and about really interesting uh, events that have happened. Would you like to tell us a little bit about them?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I write both fiction and nonfiction. It's all set in Minnesota. And it's usually all involved with wilderness issues. So my first book was lost in the my first nonfiction book was lost in the wild about two survival instances that stuff like you've been involved with your dogs, tracking down people. That's one of the first places I did some research and found out that some scent tracking dogs were used to try to track down one of the people I write about in Lost in the Wild, and I talk about that in the book. But I've also written about um, other wilderness issues. There was a huge fire that happened up in north, like you guys have had a lot of fires. Minnesota is not immune. There was the Ham Lake fire. At the time, it was about the biggest fire, burned 76,000 acres and 144 structures. Yeah. And I tell the whole story about how that fire started. It was actually started by a camper, which is unusual. Usually they're started by lightning. And then my latest nonfiction, and then I also wrote a book about that was set in southeastern Minnesota about the discovery, exploration, and politics surrounding a wild cave in this driftless area
Okay.
that where Rattlesnake Bluff is set. And then my latest one is about a huge windstorm that happened in the Boundary Waters. We have that Boundary Waters canoe area, and 48 million trees were leveled.
Oh,
And I tell the story
holy
about
cow.
how that storm happened and the people that were trapped and all that kind of thing. And I have to say, the fiction writing sort of informs the nonfiction writing because I try to write it in a narrative nonfiction style. So it sort of reads like kind of like a narrative, there's a story going on with a
Yeah.
clear beginning, middle, and end, and a chronology to it. So I think that works. But yeah, they're all wilderness and they're all set in Minnesota.
Oh, that's fantastic. I look forward to reading them because I have I haven't found them on your website and they just look so interesting. So, where can readers connect with you or best connect
Uh,
with you?
Online via email. You can get my books any of the online places. I think places in my books tend to be in, I've found them in Tucson, I've found them out in the
Oh,
Northwest, I found them in Denver. They're in those locations. They're in places where there's a lot of outdoor activity or environmental interest. So you can find them in those bookstores, but of course you can also get them on all the online sources, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, any of those places too.
great. And I'll put your website in the show notes, but it's just caryjgriffith.com. Is that correct? Cary
CaryGriffith.com.
Griffith.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Great. Well,
Great.
fantastic. Well, everyone, it is Rattlesnake Bluff. Fantastic book. And is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we end today?
No, I just want to say thank you again. I love this podcast. I'm going to really look forward to queuing in on it all the time. I know you have a lot of really interesting people queued up. Somebody should interview you for your books. If you need
Oh, thanks.
if you need me to do that, let me know because you have some excellent books too. I really look forward to them. And I think people would probably be curious. You've got something coming up?
I do.
You,
I do have a book coming out in September 30th, and it's a romantic suspense with Harlequins. So a little different from
oh,
the series I've been writing.
yes.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, good
Yeah,
for you.
thanks. Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's Colorado Canine Rescue. And then I'll have a few more National Forest Canine books coming out next year in
Oh,
2026.
good.
So, yeah.
Good. Good.
Yeah. So, thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. And it's been a
Oh,
pleasure and an honor to have you on today.
oh, thank you, Kathleen. It's been an honor to be on. Thanks.
Thanks for joining me today. Sit, Stay, Read is a part of the Authors on the Air Global Network. If you enjoyed today's author interview, be sure to leave a review and share the episode with a fellow animal-loving reader. If you're curious about the world of working dogs and wilderness adventures, please check out my books at KathleenDonnelly.com. Until next time, curl up with your best furry friend and sit, stay, read.